Welcome back to Whitetail Garage. This week we were supposed to be doing LED installs on all four corners, headlights, markers, tail lights. Didn't work out. Last time I went to drive Rita, the 66, she wasn't running right. It was kind of spitting, sputtering, dying, couldn't keep her running. First inspection looked like the nuts on the carburetor just slightly loosened, and I was getting some leakage, fuel leakage actually, at the base of the carburetor where it meets the plate in between the carburetor and the intake. So I need to investigate that. I really don't think that's the issue. I tightened it up slightly, but the way it's spitting and stumbling, I feel like there may be an issue with either ignition or maybe a couple of fouled plugs. So I'm going to start digging into that right now. We're going to work on that first. We'll have to do LED lights in the next video. So for now, let's just dig in and see if we can figure out why she's running rough, and we'll go from there. First, let me see if I can just get her to act up for you guys on camera for what she was doing for me. I'll go ahead and try and start it up, see if y'all can hear what I'm talking about. So definitely very clear that it's running real rough. It's smoking as well while it's stumbling, so definitely air fuel mixture's wrong. Stumbling, sounds like it's missing a little bit. It's all over the place. So a couple of places I'm going to start. I'm going to double check that everything's solid and good on the carburetor from what I can tell, obviously externally. Make sure it's doing what we would expect it to do. And then I'm going to dig into the distributor. So this is that off of Amazon distributor that was leaking some oil into the housing. The company that I got it from was not interested really in warrantying it. They, it's like a known issue for them, and they don't care about it. They're just throwing junk out there, and people are buying it, right? So I bought it, but I bought it knowing it was, those were the reviews, and I bought it knowing that, right? So I went into it full well knowing that was going to happen. I wanted a distributor on the cheap. I didn't want to spend DUI prices for something that I'm only going to have for a little bit. So if you're going to go long term on this, definitely drop the money on a DUI. I've heard they fixed the issue that these cheaper ones have with oiling. But what's happening is oil's traveling up the shaft and not draining back down the housing into the block. And so maybe oil's gotten up there and it's stopping it from arcing and creating the spark it needs to. So we're going to double check that. Maybe if it's even penetrated the coil that's on top of the HEI. So we'll dig in there, and if I need to, then I'll start pulling plugs and see if we've got one hole that's down or causing issues, and just dig into that. So just running it for that little bit, it's got a definite smell of gasoline right now. So I did notice while it was running earlier when it was giving me issues that I did see that the fuel was flowing. I could feel the pump clicking, so in theory we are getting the fuel we need. Like I said, I am seeing it. There's a pretty significant leak of fuel at the base of the carburetor, so I need to see where that's coming from. I don't know if you can make that out. Yeah, this nut right here, you've got a same one on the other side. Both of them were a little loose, not terribly loose, but definitely leaking. I'll bring you in so you can see that a little bit closer. And then we'll dig into the distributor as well. Let me go ahead and do that right now. So nothing different than what I've been seeing previously, but let me get you in here close. Again, nothing new to me. You see you've got oil collecting right there, and then oil kind of runs out right there. I mean, just so you can clearly see what I'm talking about, right? Oil's collecting right there. oil's running out and falling on the ground right there, but it's not significant. You can kind of see the line that it makes in there. It's not getting anywhere towards the top. I don't see any intrusion or capability of getting in here at the coil. I don't see anything on the cap that would be causing any issues there. So definitely still something I want to fix, but not causing our issue now. I guess there's the potential for it to have penetrated here and causing issues perhaps. Maybe we get that cap off and just take a look around the rest of those components. Not the cap, but maybe we get the rotor off and take a look under there. Let's do that real quick. This is likely to be all fuel related just from the way that it sounds. But this is a pretty quick check on what's going on just to see. Let's get in close. Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything that would cause me concern at this point. Again, it was just related as it relates to the oil that's collecting. Supposedly there's a spot in here down in the base that needs to be drilled out, that a factory distributor or a DUI apparently is drilled, that allows for that drainage back. And I've only found a brief conversation on a forum that covers that, and have yet to find the actual illustration that shows where I would drill. So as soon as I find that, I'll go through that exercise again. This is a temporary solution for me, but for those that it isn't a temporary solution, if I can find that spot and get it drilled and it fixes my situation, all in all, with the exception of that, this isn't a bad distributor for the price. It's really just the new oil leak that I have associated with that oil that collects there. So if I can figure that out, I'll post it to the channel. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and put the cap and rotor back on. I don't see anything that causes me any concern that I would want to necessarily address. So I'll get this back on, and I guess we'll move over to the carburetor. All right, so getting in the carburetor here, you know, maybe there's some minor seepage or leakage here. I just see that discoloration doesn't look fresh. Where I pulled that from down here a second ago from running it, it looks like it's already evaporated. I don't really see any spots there. So let's take a look while I'm cranking and see what we see. Okay, so looking at this, you can see, well, leakage right there for sure. And then looks like an oil change is in my future as well. I gotta figure out why all that fuel is dumping on the top of the butterfly. It's a mechanical fuel pump right down there. Mechanical fuel pump, and it is still sitting there pulling in fuel for some reason. And running all down the side here. So let's dig in there. So definitely a problem with the carburetor for sure. That amount of leakage I hadn't seen yet, and with it just straight dumping, definitely an issue there. I was the one that did the rebuild on this. You know, I have fairly limited experience in the carburetor world. You know, these rebuilds, certainly this one is pretty basic. So I think I did all that correctly. Everything went together really well and simple with it, but I'm seeing some leakage in some interesting spots down here at this baffle, or this this throttle linkage I'm seeing, and that's not a seal that I adjusted before. So I'm going to look at that. I'm going to go and get the carburetor off in my hands, see if there's anything obvious, and then maybe take this top plate off that shows me into the bowls, see if there's any blockages or anything stuck inside there with regard to the pump or anything else that could be stopped or blocked in there. So I'm going to take that off now. the linkage off there. And I already took the heat riser off, and then there's the fuel line. I'll just take these two nuts off of either side. Well, to give you an idea of how much fuel is actually being dropped, that's how much fuel is actually being dropped. I am just filling this thing up. So my assumption is the oil pan is probably full of fuel, so that's awesome. Got an oil change in my future. So obviously the carburetor is our issue. I'll have to dig into that. I will pull the rest of this apart just to get it all cleaned up, make sure we're still making good seals. But otherwise, definitely the carburetor and up is the problem. So again, just being as clear as I can be, I don't know a ton about carburetors. Oh, there we go. The bowl was full. Get that out of there. But I don't know if you could hear that. The pump is working. And again, that I'll run out of fuel by the time I get to show it, but yeah, I ran out of fuel right as I went to show it. But right before that, it was pumping. But it's like, I mean, you can see there's definitely some buildup, and it looks like it's leaking from down here. So maybe just this gasket in here is bad. I guess I'll start by taking that off, because that would be directly above this. That's because it's basically filling up with fuel on the other side of this butterfly. So theoretically, if we've got a leak at the bottom of that gasket, it would just land on top of that butterfly. So let's start there. All right, so I know every one of y'all were screaming at the screen, right? Well, this dolt that's taking apart this carburetor, not really realizing the very obvious thing, and that's that fuel will not flow through this carburetor if this needle and seat is stopping it. So if the float is coming up and hitting the needle and stopping it, you won't have a constant flow of fuel like we were seeing down through the barrel into the intake. So the issue is right here. So I already started to pull this out, and my needle and seat do move without issue. So let's dig in here very quickly and see what's going on with that float. I rebuilt this carburetor, and it's a new float, new needle and seat. It's the original pin that holds the float. New pump, everything else there's new gasket. All those parts came from Mike's Carburetor Parts. No affiliation, no connection, don't know the guy, but he has some great videos, and the kits that he has are very complete. A lot of knowledge base there. So I'd highly recommend that if you're doing anything with these carburetors, if you're not just going to buy a rebuilt carburetor, go to Mike's Carburetor's website. I don't remember what the link is. I can put it in the description, but go to that website and you'll be able to find all the things that are available for these old carburetors. All right, here we go. Let's see what we see. So everything seems to be correct. Again, this is my memory of working with this particular carburetor. That noise I was hearing, that's going to be the normal noise. I'd have to flip it upside down to really get that good solid noise. So I mean, all that seems to be working. The perhaps the needle was just stuck. I wish I'd have thought about it while it was still in the car, because I could have just rapped on the side of the case to confirm that. There's nothing in the floats, so all that seems good. So no obvious callouts here. No buildup inside there, nothing causing any issues there. The needle seems to be good. When I have it together and blow through, I can just lightly press that, just a tiny amount of pressure, and that stops even air, and I can let go and it flows air. So no issues there. Just kind of see just the weight easily goes in, no blockages, no concerns there. It's interesting. Okay, with not enough knowledge and nothing obvious, I'm going to reassemble and retest, I suppose. Alright, I got the carburetor back together. We're going to throw this guy back on there. I know what you're thinking. Just bear with me. Alright. Not a carburetor guy. I don't have any automotive experience as far as my career in carbureted stuff, so it's only the things that I play with. So the obvious things don't necessarily jump to mind, and the needle and seat was certainly one of them. I didn't find anything wrong. Everything looked completely normal. Everything looked exactly like I would have expected it to look right after a rebuild. No concerns. So maybe the needle was stuck with some trash in it. There are two filters in line. There's one down, you can't really see, but you know, that classic Wix see-through filter, and then there's the Motorcraft filter right on the end of the carburetor. So maybe somehow some trash got in there, maybe from even the rebuild. I actually got stuck in the needle. I don't know, but the needle is operating as expected. The floats are operating as expected, but something was causing them to allow fuel to constantly flow. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the carburetor back on there, test again, and see if me just fiddling with it caused everything to come unstuck, and just go from there. All right, so bolted back up and just connected the fuel line. Got a few other things I need to connect, but I just want to fill up the bowls and make sure it stops. Fill up the bowls. I just want to fill up the bowl and make sure it stops when it's full. So I'm just going to crank on it with no ignition and see what happens. Okay, just checking for fuel leaks. Not seeing any fuel leaks. Well, after a couple of little spits and sputters, it did fire up and run. It is running quite nicely, and no leaks down here. So it must have just been that needle stuck open for whatever reason, and fiddling with it made it work. So rather than take it apart and dismantle it, I should have started here, pulled that needle out, double checked that everything was good, put it back together, double check it, and make sure it's good. But it's turning to idle fine, no smoke. So yeah. if I'd have thought about the fact that the fuel was overflowing and still flowing, even though the bowl should be full, and basically it was overflowing the bowl, that clearly only means that the needle and seat there is stuck open. So that could be the floats, it could be any of that linkage associated with the floats kind of stopping it from rotating, or the needle itself just having some trash in there. Like I said, when I went in there, didn't see anything wrong, but just me disturbing it could have easily knocked something loose. It doesn't need much to get in the way and block that. So could have been anything. I've put it all back together. It seems to run and drive, or it seems to, I put it all back together. It seems to run good again. So we'll get it out for a test drive soon and make sure that's good there. But otherwise, hopefully in the next video, you are seeing LED lights. So tune in for that. Sorry for the delay on that, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.